Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going tonight? Mark here. We are on episode number 7 tonight. Unbelievable, in less than a week almost. Josh Adams is going to be our special guest tonight. Really excited to have Josh on. He's an awesome dude. Lewis Perry might be joining us a little bit later on tonight for some questions with Josh. Guys, you know how I like to start the show. We got a awesome Kickstarter going on right now for Hellpug and Velocicock. If you guys haven't seen it yet, please check it out. Velocicock is half Velociraptor and also half cock like a chicken. So it's going to be a really funny story. Stan really liked that last night. He liked the title. He said it was 1 in a million, which I really appreciated. We're going to play the video real quick right before we bring on our special guest of the Hellpug and Velocicock intro video with King Marino doing the soundtrack for this. So we're going to play it real quick and then we'll bring on our special guest.
Well, who's the big bad boss? I'm the big bad boss. And my name is Hellpug. Talk a lot of shit when I walk. I just walk around with a bad mood. My attitude, that's bad too. If the queen said I'ma bust a move, if you cross her, I'ma bust you too. Lilith said I gotta go away to find a husband and my daddy, yeah. On a special mission, I complete the mission, always ready for a battle, eh? Find Lucifer, then bring him back. Think I gotta jump on where he hiding at. But first I gotta move the queen to a safer place where ain't nobody riot at. That's a 10-4, buddy, roger that. About to hit the city, I'll be right back. Yeah, the city of Los Angeles to a castle town where nobody at. Hold up, what is this that I see? A Velocicock, half raptor, half cock. Run up on them with them things cock. And around in the chamber that bang cock. Oh, now this getting crazy. Somebody else done appeared. And it look like it's a rhinoceros Rex. Me and Velocicock, we have a threat. And my God, there's another now. We have a mess. And this one's an elephantitis. Me and Velocicock must be united. Kapow, kaplooey, we fighting. We striking them quicker than lightning. It's history, put it in writing.
Boom, that is the Kickstarter video for the Hellpug and Velocicock comic that we got going on right now. Guys, it is that time. Special guest appearance, folks. Making his debut on the Mayhem show with Mark May, it is Josh Adams, ladies and gentlemen. What is up, my man? How you doing tonight? Dude, I am doing good, man. Fulfilling a Kickstarter, launching a Kickstarter at the same time, and then also just been drawing, man. How about you?
Doing good. No complaints at the moment. It's April, so taking care of the taxes, trying to get outside and enjoy the improving weather, watching baseball. it's baseball.
Who's your team, Josh?
My team is the New York Mets.
Oh, how are they doing this season?
They are doing pretty good. They're working on their offense, but they're doing. I think they're. Are they number one in the East? The National League East?
I thought that's what I heard, is that they might be number one. The Rockies just hired their general manager, so we're not doing so good.
Yeah, but you know what? That was a good move, getting rid of that GM, because he was not a very smart fella. I mean, look, I don't want to say I don't like to speak ill of people, but those are some strange decisions going on.
In Colorado, for sure, man. Like every good player we get, including pitchers or hitters, we ship them out of town. It doesn't matter who it is. And that's just not winning baseball right there. So
yeah. And you guys are about to lose that shortstop of yours, and he's something else.
Yeah. And we had got that shortstop after we had traded away to Tulowitzki, which was one of the best shortstops there was at the time. And Absolutely. That's just something we do. We just trade our good players away, and man, it is tough to be a Rockies fan. It's so tough, man, because you just watch all those people that you buy jerseys for just disappear, man.
And it's a shame. It's a shame because baseball, Rockies baseball, is fun to watch. I like seeing the balls fly all over the place.
Hey, have you ever been to a game up here?
I've not. I've been out. I've been out there 2 times, and you've yet to be able to catch a game out there. I really want to. I like the ballpark, looks real cool, and just haven't had the chance. It's I travel for conventions like you do as well, and usually you land or you drive into a place, Thursday night or Friday, and you set up, you do the show, you pack up, and you're off to the next place. So I've rarely had the chance to enjoy so much. I enjoy some of the towns that I get to go to. You get to go to some nice restaurants, hang out with some people. But yeah, I got to, when I came to Denver the first time. I spent a couple days out there, and I got to do some sightseeing in sort of the outside the city.
Where'd you go?
What?
Where'd you go?
We checked out this cool antique place. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's this massive antiques place, and my dad ended up buying a bronze statue. And
was it in Idaho Springs by chance?
That is a good question. I wish I had that information, at the ready. But it was really cool. And then we got to go to was it Mile High Comics, which was awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge store.
I love that. That was so good. Everyone there is really sweet, and they pulled. I was talking with everyone there, and they asked me what one of my favorite books was, and I remember saying that the X-Babies comics were my favorite, and after about like 20 minutes or so, they came back to me while I was walking around, and they had like a handful of like the original X-Babies stories, and they just gave them to me, and it was just like,
wow,
this is awesome. Made my day. So I've got a lot of good memories going out there, and it is one of the many places I do miss when it comes to traveling to conventions, and I hope, when things get back to some sort of normal, I can find my way back out there again.
Well, I definitely agree with you there. And when you do come out, man, I'll show you some of the good places to eat around here in Denver,
Awesome.
if you'd like. Speaking of which, you had just mentioned it yourself, talking about restaurants that you go to from different cities for conventions. One of the first questions I actually ask people on this show is, what is your favorite restaurant at a convention? When you go, like, what's your favorite food either to eat, or what is your favorite restaurant in what city?
At a convention, you mean like when I'm doing cons?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Well, we used to have a tradition when we go to San Diego for Comic-Con. We would go to this place that's right across the way from the convention center. It's called Lou and Mickey's, and it's a really nice like steakhouse, chop house kind of place, and it's really great. That one always comes to mind. I love that. There's another place in San Diego. It's an Italian family style place. It's not like blow you away Italian food, but the atmosphere is great. It's Buca di Beppo. Right. It's really fun.
Oh yeah, Buca di Beppo. We have one of those over here, actually.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things where it's like when you're in San Diego for Comic-Con and it's so hard to find places to go. That's like one of those places that's always like willing to like seat a large group in the evenings, and so it's not like blow your mind food, but it's you get good memories from being there because you go out there with 15 people from the con, and you spend hours there sharing food and sharing stories and having a good time. Yeah, that one always comes to mind. I've been to so many places. Oh my God. I mean, I've told you before, there was a year where I did at least 26 conventions.
Whoa, man. 20.
Yeah, no, that is, you throw in holidays and there's not many weekends you get to yourself.
No, one every 2 weeks, guys.
Yeah, there was a 6-week stretch. There was a 6-week stretch from May to June where I was not home. And, my wife traveled with me to a lot of the shows, and we came back into town, and we had a parent-teacher conference for our daughter's school, and we sat down in front of the teacher, and we looked at the teacher, and then we looked at each other, and we're like, I don't think I've seen this teacher before. That's just how long it had been since we had been in town. So you get tons of great memories, tons of great experiences, but you start to like they start to blend together at certain times, like what restaurant you're at, what convention center you're at.
Yeah, I mean, dude, sometimes you were in a city and you were just like, man, I mean, just for a split second, you wake up and you're like, I don't know what city I'm in. You know what I mean? I don't know if it happened to you, but it's happened to me, man.
Yeah, well, that definitely on those stretches where it's 6 weeks since I've been home, you get that feeling, and then you get to places and like we got to Calgary, and the people in Calgary say Calgary, it's the Texas of Canada, and I'm like, please don't name another place while I'm here because I'm gonna suddenly forget that I'm in Calgary and think I'm in Texas. Ugh. But it's
What's
good,
your favorite, go ahead.
I
Go
love
ahead.
those experiences.
What's your favorite place to do a convention, Josh?
Oh man, there's some great shows. I mean, uh, I loved coming out to Denver. It was great. That the first time I came out to that show, um, it was a madhouse. That show was it was so crazy, and everyone was so enthusiastic. I had such a good time. I left with nothing. I sold everything I had.
Wow.
There was lines. It was crazy. And the second time I came back, it was, well, I'd say, it wasn't as crazy a time because I wasn't selling a lot, like pushing a lot of my own stuff at that time and promoting a lot of stuff. It was still such a good show. It's like, it was really well run. Again, the people going to the show had a lot of enthusiasm for coming out. So that's definitely been up there as one of my favorites. And before all the pandemic happened, I was really considering coming back again. And yes, that's a great one. I love going out to Calgary. A lot of the shows in Canada are really wonderful. Really, the thing that makes a show good for me is when the attendees, when the people who are paying to come are having a good time, and they're showing it because you kind of build off that energy. Like I like New York Comic Con. It's a good one. I can't deny that it's my hometown one.
That's the one. So I even said it a couple days ago on my Facebook page. Somebody was like, "Don't you think San Diego Comic Con's the big daddy of them all?" And I was like, "No, listen to me. Like, I haven't been to San Diego and I haven't been to New York, but let me tell you which one I want to go to first. And that's New York. You know what I mean? Because that's apparently where I can show, my stuff to the right people from what
Yeah,
I've heard. And that's really what I want to do is get in a situation to where you can do something like that. All these conventions are great, but the truth is until you get to the right one and you're able to push your stuff in front of people, like that's the top one on my list. I applied last week actually, Josh, so I'm crossing my fingers and I'm praying to God that I finally get it this time. Like, I'm a publisher, I got books, I came out with 6 books in 6 months, guys. It's crazy.
you can make it happen. New York is a good show. It's going to be a weird one this year because of all the restrictions we'll have in New York. But
Right.
Going is still going. I mean, the first New York Comic Con of this convention ownership, it was a madhouse. It was an absolute madhouse because people forgot how much they wanted to have a big convention in New York City, and I mean. The Repop who organized it, they did their best to make it as big as possible that first year, but they could have filled an entire city block with convention booths and aisles, and it wouldn't have been enough.
Right.
It's from a standpoint of a person who has bought a ticket to that show before, it is not an easy show to get into, whether you're an exhibitor, an artist, a guest, or just someone going to enjoy yourself. Mm-hmm. It is an intense experience just getting in. So everyone who gets in the door is very appreciative and very excited to be there.
Josh, did you know that Denver has been bought out?
I'm not surprised.
I believe Toronto Fan Expo owns it now.
Fan Expo, yeah, they were they're really coming in and catching all the big shows, trying to take in the best. They're kind of doing it like the Yankees, sign all the big talent. So yeah, it's a good move for Fan Expo. Informa is the company that owns them. It's smart. And they put together some good shows. They got MegaCon down in Florida as well, and they got the shows in Toronto and Montreal, and they bought a few other shows around the country. So yeah, they're putting together a good stable of conventions.
All right, so I guess the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is, you've done comics. You've actually done production for
Mhm.
the Sci-Fi Channel, which is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
That's something I wanted to talk to you about is your production stuff. How did you get into production? Because we have comic artists on here every night
Mhm.
almost, and none of them probably have this experience that you have. So let's hear about it.
Well, gosh, it's one of those kind of it's a pretty innocuous thing and sort of a blink if you miss it kind of experience. Uh, I got to be an intern at the Sci-Fi Channel, um, and I was on the New York side, so I wasn't like knee deep in all the like crazy cool stuff. It was more the early like, more the promotional stuff. But I was interning there, and they had me in the graphics department, and it's kind of a strange place to be to have an intern because what are you going to do? And I was 17 at the time. I actually lied about my age to get the internship,
Wow.
um, and so I could draw. And so they basically just set me up with like scripts and things like that to do, kind of concept stuff for how they were going to promote new shows. And the first big one I got was for a show called Eureka, and it was really cool. It was great. They just gave me a script. That's all I really had at the time, and uh, I set about just to sketch, and it was a very like let's just keep this kid busy for a while, and then after I did a whole bunch of these things where it was like you know. Uh, like kids drawing like mathematical equations on the side. It was like it was a show about a town of geniuses that like work for the government kind of thing. I don't know if you ever saw that show. It's popular for a while.
Yeah,
Um,
I have seen it.
yeah, but I did all these sketches, and it was all these kind of like Norman Rockwell esque scenes, but with like this sci-fi twist to them, and then like a year later, I'm actually at I'm walking down my street, and I walk to like a bus stand, and there's a poster there for Eureka, the show. I was like, oh my god, that's the show I worked on. And so I tune into it. It premieres during Comic Con, and I see the opening, and the opening has got all these Norman Rockwell esque scenes with that sci-fi twist on it. It's like, oh my god, did they used some of my shit? They used some of my stuff. I'm sorry. Um,
You're
and
allowed to cuss on here, sir.
What's that?
I said you're absolutely allowed to cuss on here.
All right. Well, I do my best not to anyway. But yeah, it was kind of amazing, and a few of those things popped up throughout the years. But it was just a cool, fun experience to start out. And I was 17, like as an intern, and then eventually, it got to the point where like I was, they were using me for things that you wouldn't use an intern for, and so I said, look, guys, one, I'm going to college. Two, if I'm taking, someone's paid work away, I can't do this anymore. And so either pay me or pay the guy that you've been paying to do this stuff. And obviously they paid the guy that they were going to pay to do the stuff before because he was the pro and I was the, teenager. But a little time passed and I became a regular freelancer for them, working on a lot of promotional stuff. For a few years, pretty much every show they had, the promotional concepts came from, my art. And it was a real fun time, as a lot of people will find their way into doing advertising, doing work for TV, and they'll never get to work on anything remotely as cool as stuff for the Sci-Fi Channel. Even if you don't like the shows, you got to appreciate, doing like crazy, aliens and monsters and all sorts of that cool stuff.
Absolutely. I think that would be the most fun thing to work on, period. I mean, because I
Yeah.
mean, one of the shows you got to work on was Stargate SG-1, which my girlfriend absolutely loves.
Yes.
So, I mean, that is amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Um,
It was. I just it was. It was a lot. It was for sort of their back end of that run. They were doing a lot. They were really pushing it on sci-fi, and they had a lot of these kind of cool vignette commercials for it that I got to kind of help concept, which was really fun. And then a little bit of stuff with Atlantis, and then they had that spin-off. Shoot, I can't remember the spin-off, but it wasn't a long-lasting one. But it was a good time, and I was a fan of Stargate for years before that. And in fact, my dad actually did a poster for Stargate when they were promoting it with Farscape. So it was a Stargate and Farscape like Friday night like special or whatever it was, and he did a poster for that. And I think that was really the first connections I made with sci-fi was when Dad was doing that. But yeah, it was a cool place to be. And the other backstory to that was not only did I intern there when I was 17 and lie about my age to get there, but I did the internship because my school was going to let me off of my like last semester if I could land a professional internship. So I was like interning at Sci-Fi instead of going to school, which was awesome.
way cool.
And I had to like present a report about it at the end of the year. I was like, sure, I can write about my experience at Sci-Fi. This is awesome.
Dude, that's incredible, man. So you actually you worked on Doctor Who for IDW Comics as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. I forced my way into working on Doctor Who for IDW. At the time, the editor was Denton Tipton, who he's working with a great publisher now. Is he working at Heavy Metal? I believe he's at Heavy Metal now. And I think he has his own imprint. He's a wonderful guy. I'm still pretty good friends with him. And I had contacted Chris Ryle at IDW when I found out that they had the Doctor Who comics because I was a big fan. And I said I want to do work for IDW, and Chris he's a facilitator. He makes things happen, and he says, well, this Denton works on this. Here's his email. Reach out to him and show him your stuff. He's not there to like, block anyone from trying to do what they want to do, which is amazing. So I contacted Denton, and he said, I got a pretty good slate of people right now, but if there is an opening, we'll find a way to work you in, and we'll see what happens. Which, he hadn't seen a lot of my stuff. He didn't know me. So he gave me the most like honest response he could give me. And then I said, just so you know, I'm going to keep sending you stuff. I'm going to keep contacting you until this happens, and I'm not going to pester you, but I'm just letting you know, like, I'm definitely going to be here. So keep me at the top of the list, and you got to kind of do that sometimes. And it got to the point I actually started going to the conventions and telling people that I was going to be working on the Doctor Who books, because as far as I was concerned, I was going to be working on the Doctor Who books. Mm-hmm. And so like, it kind of became like a thing that like, I made that my destiny. And so by the time it happened, I already had like a fan base of people who were like, hey, yeah, he does Doctor Who. And finally, months later, I did Doctor Who. And it was the coolest. It was so fun. I mean, if you're a guy who gets easily bored, I can get easily bored sometimes. Being able to work on a book where every issue could be wildly different than the previous issue is a delight.
Well, that's amazing, man. Let me ask you, what is your favorite comic that you've worked on, man?
Gosh, they have different things that make them wonderful. Like I loved some of the stuff I got to do on Doctor Who. I got to do a giant robot T-Rex who was insecure about his own, person, like who he was in life. I I got to do all sorts of, fun stuff like that with them. I love the stuff I'm doing now with the Business Insider. I feel like it's very relevant and it's very, it's motivating. It has kind of a bigger purpose for me. So I think over my career, that's probably the stuff I'm doing now feels like it's the most significant to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're making a difference with that book?
I do.
What you're doing with Business Insider?
I mean, short answer is I do. The long answer is that, at any time you try to make a difference, I mean, one, it feels like pushing a massive boulder up a hill. It doesn't feel like you're really making a difference, but believing that you can and believing you have the persistence to do it will lead you to that goal eventually. So I don't do it to like release a story and have a million people be like, oh my God, this opened my eyes and the whole world is different. I do it to do a dozen stories or 24 stories or however many it's going to take to reach enough people to get even just a few people at a time to, learn more about what's going on in the world or get a more informed perspective. And it's never overnight. Very few things are. So you just keep plugging away and, one day enough people will see it and it may make some sort of difference. I'll never personally see it, and I'm cool with that. I know that the work I'm doing is affecting some people, and that's worth it.
Josh, that might be the coolest answer we've ever had on the show. So, and I'm going to refer to it a lot in the years to come on the show. I'm going to tell people, hey, that answer right there, you just listen to that little thing he said about it doesn't happen overnight, and you got to build and build and build, and eventually you will make a difference. I mean, you can't think that you ever won't. What he just said is exactly where it's at, guys. So, Josh,
infinitely quotable.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. How did you land this job for Business Insider, and what would make you think to go out and do something like that instead of, say, doing your own comic book?
Well, I'll tell you, to start, I got the job at New York Comic Con. So yeah, another reason why I may want to be there is business does happen there. Can't deny that.
Definitely want to be there.
I wasn't interested in doing comics heading into New York Comic Con in 2019. I was very down about the prospect of doing comic books. I mean, I was still interested in doing comics for me, but that was just, in my free time at home, maybe show them to people, maybe not, just do them to scratch that itch. But to do it professionally, I had sort of decided that I wasn't going to do it anymore. I was making good money doing advertising, and while it wasn't necessarily fulfilling, it was allowing me to, set up a base of living for my family, and I was fine with that. And I went to New York Comic Con because all my siblings were going and my dad was going, and it kind of was going to be a fun thing to do as a family that are all artists. And I was there, and my editor at Business Insider, who wasn't my editor then, but he worked at Business Insider. His name is Walter Hickey. He had this idea for using comic books as a way to get people to notice some of the more important stories that may not be reaching a particular demographic. And so he was kind of at the con scouting talent, doing research, just trying to get a better idea of, how to move forward. And he came to me, he saw my table, and we started talking. And I don't know if he talked to other people. I don't know if he had talked to other people, if I was at the top of his list, but he showed me some of the ideas. And this was pre-2020, so a lot of the ideas were not as crazy. We're not covering stories as crazy as the ones that we've had to cover, but they were still important stories. And that clicked for me because I didn't want to do comics just to pay the bills. I wanted to do comics with a purpose. And, here comes this guy saying, I've got comics with a purpose. And I left that at the end of that show, like just hoping that I would hear from Walt. And the next day, that Monday, he texted me. I remember very specifically, I was out picking some stuff up at the pharmacy, and he had texted me, and I texted him right back. And I was just like, let's do this. I'm game. And, I don't know. Maybe it was that I was the first person to text back. I've never really talked to Walt about it. But I was so excited about the idea of doing comics with a purpose. And, that was really it. We were off from there. They actually were gonna let me write it, write the stories, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I could do that. And then I sat down and I was like, oh, that's a lot of research. That is a lot of work. And I don't mind. I still do some of the research and I still contribute, on that side of things. But oh man, I need a writer. So my wife actually made the suggestion to me that I talked to Anthony Del Cole, who became the writer for the series. He does a series called Kill Shakespeare, and he's very smart. He's very creative, and he really, when he gets a story that we got to cover, he really digs in and he gets all the information and he puts together such a complete story in that limited space that we have. So I was really, I suggested him. The guys at Insider loved him, and that was it. We were rolling from there. It's been great.
That's awesome that they went with your suggestion too.
Yeah, they've been really trusting. They've really, I'm pretty much get to bring in the people I want to bring in for color and for lettering and for any design work that we do, or anyone who assists with art. They've trusted me. It's been great. It's as far as, a working experience, aside from, the being into getting to do comics with a purpose, the actual working environment has been really wonderful as well. They've been
That's awesome.
Very supportive and great.
Work environment's everything as far as I'm concerned. As an artist, you want freedom to feel good about what you're doing. You don't want to just be bogged down the whole time like you're working like any other job. You know what I mean? So that's an amazing feeling right there. I got to ask you, when it comes to your art style, how much of it did you pick up on your own, and how much of it did you learn from your dad?
Well, I learned a lot from my dad. He's been there to help me my whole life. So, even if I'm not sitting there going like, I want to draw like Neil Adams, I learned from his experience. I learned from being next to him most of my life. And that helps me grow. Even when I work on my own, I still think of the advice he's given me and the way he approaches his work, So a lot of it came from Dad. Even if my work may or may not look like my dad's work, a lot of it comes from that influence and the influence of other creators. I've been lucky enough to I went to school at SVA, so I learned from Joey Cavalieri and Klaus Janson, David Mazzucchelli. I'm going to miss names here, but it was a crazy Phil Jimenez as well. Sorry, Phil. A crazy stable of talent that I got to pick the brains of. So
speaking of what you were just saying, if it's okay with you, I want to show one of the sketches that I pulled off of Google, which is one of the first sketches that pulled up.
Okay.
So,
oh God,
this one right here, this Green Arrow sketch. This looks a lot like your dad's work. So
yeah,
I can see the resemblance there.
But it's not good.
I disagree. I think it's great. And here's the thing is, your dad actually helped me a ton in my career too.
Yeah.
I had 3 portfolio reviews with him now. Once in Denver, once in Colorado Springs, and then once in Vegas. He wanted to see my stuff as we were walking through. We were just all chatting at the slot machine just to see if I had gotten any better and listened to him, which is awesome. That is,
Yeah.
dude, your dad is like the like top like inspiring dude when it comes to artist portfolios, in my opinion, that I've had. Like that first one, he set a fire under my ass that has not been extinguished since. I wouldn't have made it as far as I've had in such a short period of time if it wasn't for that. You know what I
Well,
mean?
he makes you or he breaks you. That's really
Yeah,
how it is.
and you know what's great is, I mean, a lot of people would have been sad. You know what I mean, hearing that stuff, but
Yeah.
he's telling you the truth. You know what I mean? And and man, it felt like, because I'm from Alabama, okay,
Yeah.
and in Alabama, football's religion, and growing up, Bear Bryant was the coach. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Your dad reminds me of Bear Bryant, like just like one of those coaches that could just take you all the way. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to show a picture of me and him real quick.
Ah, there's so much more face there and so much less beard.
Yeah, my girlfriend, when I shave, hates it.
Uh-huh.
Hates it. I walked in one day into the gym and she's just like, "Who are you? Don't talk to me." And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's me. Come
My
on."
wife is the same way. Yeah.
Is she? Yeah. So she makes you have it.
Yeah, she likes the beard. Yeah.
Does she help you trim it at all?
She will tell me what she likes about when I trim it. She actually cuts my hair. I haven't cut my hair in ages, and we were going to cut my hair this morning, and just the day got away from us.
Dude, I know how that goes. Dina shaves my head, and so
Ah,
I got nothing up top, so I I just get rid of all of it. But it is cool that she cuts your hair for you, because it does save a ton of money on those haircuts, man.
yeah,
And
well,
and
after that whole, after the pandemic hit, it was just like, might as well do this ourselves. So,
yeah, and you know what? I mean, I think we'll be all fine doing it ourselves from here on out. I wish she'd let me cut her hair, but she won't let me. So
well, my wife shaves all around the side and the back of her head, so I help her with that. And then from that point on, cutting the rest of the hair is pretty easy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Josh, let me ask you a question. One of the questions we ask people on the show is what their favorite movie is. Like, what is your like favorite movie? Uh,
Hmm.
and here's the thing: is you could give me a top 5 too, because I realize how hard of a question that is.
I've gone on record as saying that my favorite movie is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I, don't- I, what? Who's it got in it?
That is, it stars Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer, and it is an amazing film. It's the first film that Shane Black ever directed, and Shane Black, was a famous writer in Hollywood. He wrote the Lethal Weapon movies. He wrote Long Kiss Goodnight, a ton of stuff. And in the early 2000s, he got to write and direct a film, and he called it Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And it was about a small-time criminal played by Robert Downey Jr. who is basically robbing a toy store, and his partner trips an alarm, and they're fleeing from the cops, and he accidentally bursts in on a casting session, and he lands the part. And so he gets shipped off to Hollywood to screen test for a movie, and he's teamed up with Val Kilmer, who is a private detective, and they accidentally stumble on a case. And so he's trying to become an actor, and he's trying to solve this murder. And it's crazy, goofy, hilarious fun. And it is definitely one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie. I actually got to go on MTV when I was a teenager. When I was about, I guess I was 20. I was 20. It was right before my birthday. It was right around this time, 14 years ago, right when Iron Man was coming out. And the show. There's a show on MTV called TRL, Total Request Live.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. was the guest that day, and I was to come on and draw him as his fantasy superhero. So I actually got to tell him to his face that Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is my favorite movie of all time. So that was pretty cool.
Wow, what an experience, man. Did you end up drawing that?
I ended up drawing his fantasy superhero. He wanted wings and horns and a tentacle arm and a third leg, and he wanted to be called Tripod. Yeah, it was pretty strange.
Do you have a picture of that?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a picture of that?
I do. I don't know if I have it easily accessible.
Maybe you could Facebook message it to me and I could throw it on the show.
I will send it to you if I can find it.
Okay. It's okay if you can't find it, but I gotta tell you, I don't think it gets any cooler than that experience. I mean,
yeah,
and
then he actually signed the piece I did of him, so I have it somewhere in my storage.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty. It's pretty bizarre.
Isn't it bizarre?
Yeah, I don't know what the heck that thing is. I know I've got a scan of it somewhere, but I gotta find the right name for it. Anyway, it was a cool experience. I know that there was a photo from it somewhere, from the actual episode. I don't know where the hell that went either. That's tough. Yeah, I'll have to send it to you another time. You can see it. It's pretty great.
All good. All good. Josh,
yeah.
I mean, you've had tons of incredible experiences like that, though, right?
Yeah.
Another one being Jerry Lawler being at your wedding. Right?
Yeah. You know, I try not to be a name dropper. Inadvertently, I am a name dropper because there are a number of those names out there. Jerry Lawler is one of them. Jerry is a cool dude. I love Jerry. He's he was a friend of he was a friend of a friend. That friend being Michael Kingston, who does a series called Headlocked, which if you haven't read that one, anybody out there, check it out. It's an amazing comic about the struggles of trying to be a pro wrestler. It's co-written by a lot of pro wrestlers. They come and they share their stories through that comic. It is fantastic. And Jerry, who is an artist himself, does the covers for that series. And wow. They are amazing. He's multi-talented dude.
Mm-hmm.
Pro wrestling, commentary. He's an artist. I believe he has a chain of restaurants now as well. Yeah, he's a multi-talented threat there. He'll get you, and he's also a wonderful dude. So anyway, he's a friend of a friend. He's at San Diego with Michael. They're promoting Headlocked, and Mike brings him over because, as it turns out, Jerry's a fan of my dad, and we all kind of hit it off. We all hang out, we all talk, and become friends. And even Jerry came to my wedding. He was at my wedding, so yeah, it was a cool experience. I remember one day I'm working at home, and I remember I was walking in the kitchen to get something to drink, and I get a phone call from Jerry out of the blue, and I answer it and I say, "Hey man, what's up? What's going on? Is everything okay?" And he's like, I don't know. I did a thing and I wanted to tell someone, and I thought of you. I thought you'd be the one who'd appreciate it most. And I said, well, all right, what'd you do? And he said, I bought the Batmobile. And I said, you bought the Batmobile? Like what Batmobile? He said, I bought the Adam West Batmobile. And it's like, that's awesome. That's amazing. What are you gonna do with it? And he's like, I'm gonna drive it. I'm gonna drive it around town. It's like, that sounds like what you should do. Wow. So cool. I love him. He's a big comic fan. He's a sweet dude, and he's like a big kid, just like all of us.
And he was a great wrestler. We talk about wrestling on this show with anybody who wants to talk about it. And my dad grew up watching him in the 80s because we grew up in the South. We grew up in Alabama.
Yeah.
until we moved to Colorado when I turned 18. So it's one of those things. Like Jerry Lawler was a huge influence in both our lives. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear something like that and that story, being such a appreciative fan as we are of him. So that's amazing, man. To hear that story is just amazing, and I really want to read that book by Michael Kingston.
Yes, Mike Kingston.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, Headlock sounds amazing. That's one of those books that I want in omnibus form, because I think it would be one of those that I want to read all the way through for all of it, you know. So I definitely want to read all his books. That would be awesome.
Yeah. And I'm a big wrestling fan. I haven't watched a lot of wrestling lately, but I watched it for years. I love pro wrestling.
It's one of those that on the WWE side, it seems like it's kind of rough to watch sometimes. You know what I mean? Just because it's not what it used to be. And on the AEW side, where they're trying to do this new thing, it kind of feels a little bit more exciting with how it feels. Have you had a chance to watch AEW at all?
I watched some AEW. I actually did some work for WWE. I don't know if you know
Oh
that.
wow, what? No.
Yeah,
Wow.
I did. Well, because I mean, it started with doing some work for Sci-Fi, because at the
Mhm.
time WWE was having both ECW and then SmackDown on Sci-Fi, and so I
Oh
got
yeah.
to do a lot of stuff for that. I even did at the time they were really pushing Cody Rhodes as dashing Cody Rhodes at the time on SmackDown, and the people at Sci-Fi, the producers at Sci-Fi, thought Cody was like should be the face of the show, was like a huge deal. He was good looking. He was looked like a star, and so we did all these pieces about focused on Cody, and WWE was not necessarily like on the same page,
Mhm.
but Sci-Fi kind of had the final say in some of it. So a lot of the promotion you'll see at the time featured Cody Rhodes, Rey Mysterio, and Jack Swagger. Um, and that was kind of like the people they thought should be like the focus. But flash forward to San Diego Comic-Con, and Cody had given up the dashing gimmick, and he was wearing the face mask, and he was, all gloomy about his looks being gone and everything. And I saw him walking around with the WWE camera crew past, near my table, and I called him over and I showed him I had one of the pieces that I did from Sci-Fi, and so we filmed a segment that went on to WWE.com where he like looks at the piece and he like touches the piece and he talks about his good looks being gone, and then he puts a bag on my head because that was like the thing that he was doing at the time.
Yeah, I remember his gimmick back then where he
Yeah,
did
so I
that.
got bagged at San Diego Comic-Con by Cody Rhodes, which was really crazy.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, but even after that, it may have even been that same San Diego Comic-Con. I was sitting at my table doing my thing, and Jill Thompson comes running up to me. And Jill is also a huge comic fan. A huge pro wrestling fan, I should say, and is friends with a lot of different pro wrestlers. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Nothing. I'm just sitting here." And she's like, "What's your schedule like?" And I said, "I don't know. Got a couple commissions. It's pretty open." And she's like, "No. Like, what's your working schedule like right now? Do you have time for a gig?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I could fit something in." And she goes, "I'm gonna put you on the phone right now." Like, okay. And she hands me the phone, and it's Mick Foley, and he introduces himself, and I think I'm being pranked because like, why is Jill running up with Mick Foley on the phone, asking me about a gig, and Mick, I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's basically like, we've got an opportunity for you, and it's a really tough one, but we really need help. And I was like, okay, hardcore legend Mick Foley, what do you got? And it
Dude,
turns
is
out
it even real life at that point? You know what I mean? I mean, did you ever have to ask yourself that question? It's like, is this real life right
there
now?
there have been many a moment. That was definitely one of them. Um, and so the gig turned out to be his last Christmas book, which was a most miserable Christmas. he had spoken with Jerry about doing it, and he'd spoken with Jill about doing it, and their schedules just didn't line up. And so I was number 3 on that list. Oh no, you went down.
Keep going.
You're doing some yoga over there.
Yeah.
I was number 3 on that list, and I accepted it. The schedule was crazy. I think I did the whole book in about 2.5 weeks, and it was watercolor. So one of the strange freelance things you pick up, and I think I picked it up from my dad, which is whenever someone asks you a question about whether or not you could do something, you say, "Of course I can," and then you figure it out later. So the question asked of me is, "Can you do watercolor?" And I said, "Of course I can." And I hadn't done watercolor since like early high school. So I said, "Of course I can." I as soon as the conversation was over, I hopped out from behind my table, looked for the nearest art booth, and picked up watercolors, and spent the rest of my free time at Comic-Con trying to remember how to do watercolor. And then for the next 2.5 weeks, once I got home, I did a whole book in watercolor. Crazy times. And that's one of the many experiences I've had with pro wrestlers. I've had, oh man, there's so many crazy ones. So many crazy ones. I spent, you a fan of RVD?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The whole effing show?
Yeah.
All right.
Met him in Vegas, got his autograph. Actually had my girlfriend go get his autograph because I had to be back at the table. We talked for a little bit, and
he's a nice dude, right?
That is the dude for me.
Super down to earth.
Yes.
I met him when I was 16. I'd been drawing these. I'd been using pro wrestling, like they used to make these poster books like WWE, and I used to take the poster books and I would draw all the wrestlers from that as reference because they got superhero anatomies. And so RVD was one of the guys I drew because I loved his gear, I loved his look, I was a fan of his stuff. And I had it with me one year when I went to Comic-Con. I was just going to help my dad at the table. I was 16 years old. And RVD was there. He was at Comic-Con promoting his comic store at the time. And so I had the drawing with me. I went there, and he wasn't there the day that I got there. He was going to show up another day. And so I gave them the art, and I said, I just wanted to give this to RVD. And they were like, "Oh, cool. We'll show it to him." And then I went back to my table. I was chill. And then, the next day, one of the guys from the table came by and he said, "Oh man, can you come to the table? We wanted, I wanted to show you something." And so I went back to their table and he said, "We gave this to Rob and he thought it was so cool and he wanted you to have these." And he gave me a pair of wrestling boots and knee pads that were signed by him.
God.
Right? It was so awesome. And so we kind of became buddies for a while. And we saw each other at different cons. I visited his store. And then one day, I guess a couple years later, Rob had won the ECW title, or the WWE title. Sorry. He won the WWE title on ECW One Night Stand.
Yep, against Cena. It was great.
Yeah, against Cena. It was crazy. It was a crazy night.
Loved it.
And it was in New York City. So I was at the studio the next day. I'd watched the pay-per-view. I was at the studio the next day. I was literally in the bathroom at a urinal, like doing my business. And my phone rings, and I check it out, and it's Rob. And I'm thinking, like, shouldn't you got better things to be doing than calling me the day after you win a WWE title? And I answer it, and I'm still at the urinal. And he's like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" Nothing. Trying not to pee loudly. He says, "I'm in town. You want to hang out?" I said, "Sure. What do you think you're doing?" He's like, "Oh, I was going to go visit the set of Spider-Man 3. I was like, "Okay, that sounds cool. Let's do that." And so I meet up with him downtown, and we go visit the set of Spider-Man 3. They're filming by City Hall. And Sam Raimi is there, and Tobey Maguire is there. We get to meet Sam Raimi, and then we spend the day like walking through Soho. And literally, it takes us hours to walk through Soho because every 10 feet he's stopping and posing for photos with people because he's just a chill dude and is willing to like do that. It was a surreal experience. So bizarre. but I got tons. I hung out with him a bunch of times. One time he came to Comic-Con and he didn't have a table, so he was just like hanging out. And so he came dressed up as Ghost Rider, but like he dressed up as Ghost Rider. And so we're walking around and people would ask to take a photo of him because he's dressed up in a costume. And he'd be like, okay. And he'd start to do this. And he'd be like, oh, wait, no, I'm just Ghost Rider.
Dude, I'd love to see his Ghost Rider cosplay. He sounds like a huge comic fan. I had no idea he had his own comic shop.
Oh, he is a huge comic fan. He had his own comic shop for a while. It didn't work out. Reasons I don't know, but I think when you're traveling on the road, multiple, tons of days a week, and you have a shop, like it's hard to, be hands on and manage a place. So it was an uphill battle, to begin with.
He just got inducted into the Hall of Fame this year.
Did he? Awesome. Good for him, man.
He was after, I think it was WrestleMania. I just saw it. He was on the platform out there for the Hall of Fame. But he deserves it, man. The dude deserves it.
The whole effing show.
Whole effing show, man. In ACW, the things he did, I've never seen anybody else do stuff like that. Josh, me and you could talk forever, man. It is 8:00 right now. Do you want me to let you go? You want to hang out for another 15 minutes?
Whatever you want. I'm cool.
I'll tell you what. Let's do it for another 15 minutes then, my friend.
All right.
Let me ask you another question then. This will probably be one of the second to last questions we'll have for the night for you. We know what you've done. People can actually Google you. You have your own Wikipedia page, which is pretty amazing.
It's probably grossly out of date, but yeah.
But you do have one. So, and that's the thing, is if anybody out there is listening right now, you can go check him out there and then follow from there with the information that you have. And here's the thing about Josh is we know where he's been, but where's Josh going? Tell us what you got on the horizon, my friend.
Well, that's the thing. And I would say probably if I were to look at my Wikipedia page now, it's a grower, not a shower. It's a little short at the moment, but it's getting more credits as we go. Right now I'm really enjoying the stuff I'm doing for Insider. It keeps me entertained. It's stuff I'm really psyched about. I'm really hoping to do a creator-owned book soon enough. But it's gonna come at its own pace. And we'll see where things take me. Right now I like telling comic stories that have a real purpose to them, and I think that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm very happy.
So, if there's a title that you could work on in comics, what would your dream title be that you could work on?
Gosh, let's see. I was always a huge fan of Hellblazer. Hellblazer was one of my favorite series growing up. I love John Constantine. I love the stories that were the Hellblazer John Constantine stories rather than the kind of like post Hellblazer ones. So I like that, very grounded, very, magic as kind of a strange, mysterious, almost question if it's real or not kind of stories. I really love that. I'd always like to do the classics. Be crazy to do Batman one day. I never really did a lot of superhero stuff. My style, in my opinion, never really lent itself to that. But, it's a challenge that, I'd love to take on someday. There's all sorts, Every title presents an interesting challenge. And it's always possible that you could just not work with, certain characters, but God, the challenge is always intriguing. I mean, I've never really seen myself as having an interest in drawing Fantastic Four, but if I got an opportunity to draw Fantastic Four, you better believe I'm going to be doing everything I can to find the thing that lights my fire about it,
Absolutely. What would be something that would light your fire about it? Like, what would be that ultimate thing? Like, let's say I'm the editor of Marvel and I'm coming to you today and I'm like, Josh, we need this Fantastic Four book done tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, but you know what I mean. What would be that thing that would set you off to be like, I got to do this?
Well, the likelihood is if I were to get a gig like that, I'd be the person who draws it rather than the person who writes it. So I would have to say, um, find the thing in that story that you get inspired by. So for me, it would be, trying to emphasize the interpersonal relationships between, the different characters. And because I'm not writing it, I don't get to dictate those moments, but as an artist, I can kind of be a director. So I can highlight those moments and I could really make those moments, I could really sell them, I suppose. So finding those ways to kind of create those subtle nods that say, this is how these characters feel about each other in those moments is uh, a very important thing that I think I could use to make the story more engaging.
Swamp Thing would be my favorite. That would be number one. Uh, so I'm right there with that realm with you. I think it would be more fun to do, more of that mystical creature stuff,
Yeah.
like what you're talking about with Constantine, than it would be to do like the normal, like everyday. Like the thing that intrigues me about Spider-Man is the villains that he has, but
Mhm.
it's not a book that I think I'd ever see myself being able to draw. Now, if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Mark, we want you to draw Spider-Man," you better believe I'm going to do it because there's just certain things you don't say no to, like you're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing that I think would drive me, like, would be legacy, I guess. Like, just having your name on that book, on that title,
Yeah.
just it feels solid. Like when it comes to legacy, I mean, your name has all the legacy behind it that you could possibly stand. You know what I mean? Not just from what you've done, but from what your dad's done. And I mean, your family name is going to be out there forever as far as comic history. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and you've both actually worked on Batman. So
Yeah.
you worked on Batman 1 on Odyssey, and you did a what is it? Is it a pinup or is it a cover?
I did a pinup. It was supposed to be. It was actually never meant to be for Odyssey. It was meant to
Mhm.
be a what you call an inventory cover. So it was done just in case they needed to cover one day and they didn't have someone lined up. They always keep like a little store of extra covers off to the side. But since they were doing Odyssey, um, everyone thought it'd be cool if we threw it in there as like a little bonus thing. And one of the cool things about that is it's inked by Kevin Nolan, who is Kevin Nolan is one of my favorite artists in the business. He's just so talented, and I was actually so worked up about doing a piece that was going to be inked by Kevin Nolan. I almost penciled a terrible piece because of it. Like I go back and I look at that piece and I go, "Oh my god, what did I do?" I like had all these ideas and I was so paranoid that I stiffened the piece up too much. But
Right.
Kevin came in and he, did an amazing job inking it and he brought so much life back to it that I clearly was robbing from that piece. Anyway, I did work on that. I also worked on some other parts of Odyssey. I did a little bit of inking here and there, just because the studio style that we got going on, at Continuity, there are days where it's just like, Dad will hand you a page and he'll be like, "Hey, ink some of this for me." And you just go, "Okay." And you take the page, you spend an hour inking some of it, and you hand it back and you go, "How's that?" And he says, "Good." You'll finish up the page. You just keep on rolling. Um, but as far as legacy, I mean, I don't think about it too much, in terms of what Dad has done versus what I do. Um, when you're kind of doing it, you're thinking about paying bills, you're thinking about getting through the day, and thinking about like got a kid going to college soon, or property taxes due, or whatever the heck you're thinking about. The days take over. It's maybe when you're going to bed at night you think like what's my career going to be? But it's hard, it's hard to get locked into those thoughts. You just got to keep working. My dad always says that a comic book artist is a person that, you shove in a closet with a pen and paper, and they fill the page with art and they shove it back under the door just in hopes of getting another sheet of paper. That's really, I think, the number one thing about being a comic artist. It's not so much the legacy, it's really the drive to just keep creating stuff.
Yep. Wow. That's incredible. Like,
yeah.
man.
Well, you got to be a little crazy to be in this business.
I mean, you absolutely do. Which, I mean, that explains a little bit about myself. You know what I mean? I am a little. So, you as well. It is one of those things, and I tell people, when they ask me, like, you gotta ask yourself if you're willing to give up almost everything to do this. Because I have given up everything. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but I've gained so much in the process, like the books that I have that we've started coming out with since August. I've got 6 books under my publishing company now, Josh, which, I mean, that was in the past 6 months. I mean,
well, what we met in Denver, was it, I want to say 3 years ago? 2, right? Was it 3 years?
I think it was 3. Yeah, I think it was 3.
And at that point, I can't speak to exactly what you had going on, but from that point until now, you've done a whole lot. More than a lot of people I've seen, given the same essential starting point and similar, if not better, resources than you, and you've managed to make a lot. So, yeah, there's drive, there's craziness, and there's passion for the industry. So, good on you.
Dude, I really appreciate it. I seriously do. I mean, having you say that just kind of makes my month right there. So I just want you to know that.
Yeah.
Josh, as you can see, I have my own custom G.I. Joe right here. Yeah, it's mostly Chuckles and one of the dreadnoughts. So I was going to ask you, if you had your own custom G.I. Joe, who do you think that you would use for the face and body?
Gosh, that's a toughie.
Question, right?
What?
It's a tough question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, gosh, I had a ton of GI Joes when I was a kid. I even had that base, that fold out base. Remember that? That was the coolest.
Yeah. Was it the Joe one?
Yeah.
You're talking about the fold out Joe one, or was it the fold out Cobra one?
No, it was the Joe one. It was awesome.
It was the Joe one. Yeah, it had the little prison in there too.
Yep. Yeah. And it had like little plastic sandbags and everything, and the whole top would pop off. It was so cool. God, I don't know. Oh, that's so tough because, like,
yeah, I have to think about it. Maybe next time you come on the show,
we're never gonna be like the coolest Joes. That's like let's face it. Neither of us are like gonna be Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes or Cobra Commander. I don't get to be either one.
We're gonna be Zartan or something like that. But yeah, it's hard to pick one out. I mean, I like yours. Yours are pretty awesome. But yeah, no, I gotta look into it. I'll come back and tell you.
You're gonna have to let me know the next time you're on here.
That's right.
Josh, thank you so much for coming on tonight, dude. It is getting to be that time. You are awesome. You seriously, we could probably do this for another 2 hours if I had to guess, just because of the chemistry between us via talking here and questions bouncing back and forth. You're good, buddy.
They'll be like, will they, won't they? And we'll never let them know.
Dude, you're a good buddy. I wish you well until next time that we get to talk again. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I let you go tonight?
Gosh, I think I think we covered all the important stuff for now. Check out Insider Comics, insider.com. We had a new one out just last week on those knuckleheads who tried to kidnap the Michigan governor. It was a crazy read. Go look for it. It's fun and true.
I will definitely be looking, guys.
Yeah.
Josh, you're the man. Thank you so much for being on here tonight, brother.
Thank you.
We will see you next time. Guys, how awesome was that? Josh Adams is the man. Great to have him on tonight. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met on the con scene, and definitely one of the guys that you need to go talk to when doing a convention yourself. You'll learn a ton, not only from him, but from looking at his artwork as well. It is fantastic work. And you can Google him to check out his art, and you can also check him out where he told you to go check him out. So, at the end of the show, one of the things I like to do is bring on a little bit of my Kickstarter stuff. So, these are the current Hell Pug covers that we have for the Kickstarter. It's Ed Smith at the top left with Russ Cassidy, Brett Okamura in the middle, doing the Hulk 181 homage to Herb Trimp. And then Ian Chase Nichols in the middle, Sarah Frazetta on the right, homaging her grandfather, Frank Frazetta, for Egyptian Queen. In the bottom left, Stephen Pawala with Russ Cassidy on colors. Bottom middle, Steph and Carrie Ann. That is me and Sanju, bottom middle, and Joseph Rubenstein, bottom right. So check it out, guys. We have a lot of awesome covers that we're doing. These are going to be the different ones. There's Sarah's, Joe's, Steph's, Steve's, Ian's, mine. Ed Smith is going to be a lenticular, so check this out. And then there's that one. Here's a couple of pages from the inside of the book. We missed Lewis Perry tonight. I hope he's going to be here soon. Dude is the man. And then, guys, we're going to go ahead and take off for tonight. You guys have a great night. We'll see you next time.